Ultimately, this is what I think the Braves land on. And it's such an obvious choice. We move Ronald Acuna Jr. to shortstop. Man, can you imagine? I mean, Mookie Betts is doing it. Why can't Ronnie do it? For the 2024 season, the Atlanta Braves only really have 3 concerns headed into opening day. Who the number 5 starter is, and that's not really a concern. That battle has been really, really tough this spring. Whoever wins that is going to be a really good pitcher. We've got left field, which obviously Jared Kelenick's going to fill that position. We just don't know how it's going to go. That's why it's a question mark. And the last one is shortstop. Today, I'm going to be talking about the Braves' options at shortstop. So the shortstop battle in Atlanta has been dicey, to say the least, ever since Dansby left. Now, don't get me wrong. I am 100% on board with the team letting Dansby walk. There's no chance I'm paying Dansby what Chicago paid him. He's a phenomenal shortstop. He's great. I'd love to have him on the team. Nowhere near the amount of money Chicago's paying him, though. No chance. And I knew that was going to happen going into it. So the Braves made the right move, letting Dansby walk. That gave them other options to use that money in other areas. Now, going into last season, the battle was about who's going to win the shortstop position. Is it going to be Von Grissom or Braden Shoemake? It was back and forth all spring training. And then out of the blue, the Braves announced Orlando Arcia, opening day shortstop. And everybody was surprised, honestly. Nobody really gave Arcia a shot going into last season. And you know what? Arcia did a pretty good job. He was a solid shortstop last year. Defensively, he's good, right? He's not great, but he has a well above average arm, which makes up for, some of his plays. He can just gun it across there and get guys out, which is awesome. And he hit the ball last year, at least in the first half. Second half was a little different story. So we're going to look at the top 4 options the Atlanta Braves have for the 2024 season with shortstop. Here we go. The first option. It's obvious. Just keep Orlando Arcia. Again, like I said, defensively, he's fine. He's not Dansby, but he's not terrible either. He makes plays. As long as he doesn't make stupid plays, towards the end of the year last year, he started doing some things, just some mental errors that he shouldn't have been doing. And I'm not going to name any specific things, right? But he just needs to play his game and just stick with it. That's it, okay? Offensively, man, he was unreal the first half. He was unbelievable. And then he went ice cold the second half. So if he could be just a little bit more consistent throughout the year, I think that would be fine. He's going to be batting 7th, 8th, maybe 9th in the lineup. I really hope Snit holds out that number 9 hole for either Kelenic or Michael Harris. I just love them in that spot right in front of Acuna. But who knows? Arcia hits the fastball well. You put him in the 9 hole, his numbers may jump. So there's not a bad spot for him. But that's the Braves' first option. Just roll with Orlando Arcia. Let's see what happens. The second option. One of the Braves' top prospects is a shortstop by the name of Nacho Alvarez Jr. This dude hits, right? That's what he's known for. Hitting the ball. He puts the bat on the ball. He's a very high contact guy, but almost no power. But that's okay. We don't need power in our lineup. The problem is he's only gotten to single A. I would imagine he'll start the year this year at double A. And who knows? I mean, the Braves are one of the top teams to call players up from double A. But I think he's going to need significant time at double A before the Braves would consider pulling him up. Because at the end of the day, I don't know how much of an upgrade he would be from Arcia anyways. And the Braves aren't going to call him up to just sit the bench. If he gets called up, he's playing. But I didn't mention this on Arcia. We're paying him backup money. I mean, what's he making, like $2 million a year? That is backup player money. Okay, so that's one of the reasons I think the Braves could do something with shortstop this year, and then Arcia just becomes our full-time backup. He can play any of the positions in the field, um, no problem. But with Nacho Alvarez, again, I just don't think he's had enough big league at bats for the Braves to be confident enough in him to stick him at shortstop every single day. And there is a little bit of talk whether he'll stick it short. I haven't looked deep into that, but it always seems like these shortstop prospects coming up, most of the time your best player on your team in high school is a shortstop. So these guys coming through the draft, although he played college ball, a lot of them start as shortstops and they ended up transitioning elsewhere. I mean, Ozzie Albies was a shortstop when he was coming up through the system, and they moved him to second base. So, there's some questions there. Is he the long-term answer? I don't know. I think the Braves really are going to look at him as a potential for the long-term answer. He would be cheap for a bunch of years, and as long as he provides solid defense, I think that's the biggest question with him. They'll take whatever his bat gives them, which is going to be a ton of singles, a lot of contact, but he's going to be a good player. I just don't see the Braves utilizing Nacho Alvarez this year. Next year, maybe the case. This year, I just don't see it. I think he spends at least half a year at AA, and if he does well, I think they'll pull him up to AAA at that point and give him another half a season at AAA to look at him potentially for next year. The third option would be to trade for a top prospect. This isn't happening. I'm just going to flat out say it. It will not happen. First off, the Braves don't really have the trade capital to go out and get a top prospect at the shortstop position. I don't see a team, any of the teams that have any of the top shortstops available, I don't see them doing a flip of a 1-for-1 of like an AJ Smith-Shawver for whoever their shortstop is. Most of these teams are relying on these guys that are coming up, and you would have to really put together a huge haul in order to get some of these prospects away from them. And the Braves just don't have that. They do have a ton of pitching depth, right? But they like to keep that pitching depth, okay? So ultimately, I just don't see any path forward with trading for any of the top prospects. Jackson Holiday, no chance the Orioles are trading him. No chance. Zero. I can't even think of a name of a player that they would trade for. Acuna. If we were going to trade Acuna, I think Holiday would be available. Outside of that, there's nobody, right? They're not trading Jackson Holiday. The White Sox, they have the number 2 rated shortstop, Colson Montgomery. They're entering into a rebuild. They're not going to trade one of their top prospects who's a shortstop going into a rebuild. Not going to happen. Jordan Lawler for the Diamondbacks. Again, the Diamondbacks, they're on the precipice of pushing to be a really good team. Yeah, I could see them maybe trading one of their prospects for some pitching depth, but I think they're relying on Lawler for the future, even if he's not necessarily playing shortstop, but being on the team. They love his skill set, and I just don't see them trading him away. Same thing with San Diego and Jackson Merrill. He's a big guy anyways, and with most of these shortstop prospects, if you read their bios, all of them, there's question marks of whether they're going to stick at shortstop or not. There is not a bona fide shortstop in this list that would be available that it's guaranteed they're going to play shortstop for many years to come. Will some of them play shortstop for many years to come? Yeah, I'm sure a couple of them will. but there's still questions about several of them, whether they'll stick it short or not. Jackson Merrill's one of those guys. And the Padres, one, they have a ton of shortstops on their team anyways, which isn't a bad idea going after athleticism. But last year they played Jackson Merrill at, I think, 5 different positions anyways. So, and then Ha-Seong Kim is their shortstop for this year. If they decide to stick with him for a full year, I think they will. But chances are he'll go into free agency next year, and there's going to be a hole potentially. So, again, I just don't see the Padres trading Jackson Merrill. And again, just to reiterate, the Braves don't have the prospects available to go out and get a top shortstop, another top shortstop prospect. They're just not going to, they're not going to flip pitching prospects for shortstop prospects. I don't see it happening at all. Because again, there's no guarantee with these prospects of what they're going to be able to provide at the major league level. There's never a guarantee with prospects. All right, and finally, the fourth option. Ultimately, this is what I think the Braves land on. And it's such an obvious choice. We move Ronald Acuna Jr. to shortstop. I mean, Mookie Betts is doing it. Why can't Ronnie do it? So, problem solved. Game over. No, of course, I'm just kidding. There's no chance Acuna moves to shortstop. But what the Braves could do is, I think they could trade some of their pitching depth for a current major leaguer that could fill the shortstop position for them. And if you're online with Braves Twitter, everybody's saying, go get Ha-Seong Kim, go get Ha-Seong Kim. I think he'd be really good. But when you look at his numbers, he wasn't a huge upgrade over what Orlando Arcia did last year. Now, the big question is, can Arcia do it this year? I get that. I don't think there's a question about whether Ha-Seong Kim repeats his performance from last year to this year. I think that is more of a guarantee than Arcia repeating his. But most people are saying go get Ha-Seong Kim. The problem with that is he has a mutual option at the end of this season for $7 million for next year. There's no way he agrees to that. He's going to get 12, 15, 18 million a year next year on the open market. There's no way he accepts that mutual option. That's what I think. So he's essentially a rental. He's a free agent at the end of the year. And the Braves don't like doing those deals. They don't like getting those rentals unless it's at the trade deadline and they have to fill that position to go forward. And even then, they're not trading their top prospects. They're going out and they're getting somebody that you've never even thought about to fill the position to get them through the end of the season. So Ha-Seong Kim's one option. I don't see it playing out. Ton of people are saying Willy Adames. Same deal. Willy Adames is a free agent at the end of the year. Not only that, look at Willy Adames's numbers since 2020 and 2021. Since 2021, Willy Adames's numbers are really rapidly declining. Rapidly declining. Again, he's good defensive shortstop, but his offensive numbers, way down. And actually, he was a worse offensive performer than Orlando Arcia last year. So why would we trade our prospects to go get a guy that there's a good chance he's going to be worse than the guy we've already got? Not going to happen. Unless Adames comes out and he's hitting, 280 to 295 at the All-Star break, there's no way the Braves pursue him. I do think the Brewers try to trade him, but it's not going to be with the Braves. My guy, this is the sleeper pick. This is the guy that I think is on nobody's radar that the Braves would target and bring in. And if they did it, it would be shocking. It would be shocking. My sleeper prediction for the Atlanta Braves to trade to fill their shortstop position is Royce Lewis. Man, can you imagine if the Braves added Royce Lewis to their lineup? Oh my gosh. You talk about a lineup that bangs. Arcia is the biggest hole in the lineup, outside of maybe what Kelnick does this year. I think he'll have a good year, but still, Arcia is our biggest question mark. And you take Arcia and you replace him with Royce Lewis, a guy that in his 2 seasons, I know they're limited action, has hit 300 and 309 with power. Oh my goodness. That would be unbelievable. Now, currently, he plays third base for the Twins, but that's because they've got Carlos Correa at shortstop. Now, I will admit I don't know that Royce would be the best defensive shortstop, but I do think he would get the job done. He played 11 games at shortstop last year for them. He played 11 games at shortstop 2 years ago for the Twins. He ended up playing 1 game last year. So I think he can still get the job done. He's a former first overall pick. So it would be interesting to see what the Twins would ask in a trade for him. The other thing is he's under team control for many more years to come. So he's got that on his side. He has stated that he would be open to an extension. What do the Braves do? I could easily see them trading for Royce Lewis and signing him to some sort of a Braves extension. Now, he has had an injury history, some knee problems, things like that. But when you look at his numbers for last year, and after his injuries, the Twins tried him out in the outfield a little bit. He had some stolen bases last year. I really think he's moved past all of that. He's having a really good spring. So I think he's just past those injury issues. But I also think with the injury issues, that maybe brings down his asking price a little bit. The other thing is the Twins have one of the top upcoming shortstop prospects in Brooks Lee. And again, Brooks is not going to be able to play shortstop. Carlos Correa is at shortstop. But if you read Brooks's profile, they talk about him potentially being a better stick at third base or second base anyways. The Twins could trade Royce away, get some pitching, and then replace him with a top prospect in Brooks Lee, which they are super excited about. Again, really good bat. I think this is a deal that the Twins would look at making. Now, there are a few other really good reasons that Royce Lewis would be the guy to trade for, specifically revolving around the team control and the many years that we would be able to have him on the team. That plays a big, important role into why he's the guy that I believe the Braves target and go after and try to trade for. And that revolves around the future of their DH position. So we've got Nacho Alvarez coming up. We've already talked about him. He's going to be in Double-A this year. I don't see him making the jump from Double-A to the bigs. It would be great if we could give him another year of development next year, if he needs it, right, to be able to say we don't need him at the big league level. Give him another year of development in the minors, potentially, right? And Royce Lewis is there to fill the role at shortstop until Nacho's ready, or maybe Royce is just good enough and we roll with that, okay? But just in case he's not, we've got Nacho coming. But Royce gives us a ton of flexibility at DH. So the Braves have a team option on Marcell Ozuna for next year at, I believe it's $16 million, might be $18 million, one of those two numbers. But they have a team option for Marcell Ozuna next year. Now, last year, Marcell hit 40 home runs, 100 RBIs. That's insane. But the 2 seasons prior to that, he was literally the worst qualified hitter in the bigs. He was terrible. So we have no idea what to expect out of him this year. And if the Braves have Royce Lewis on their roster, who they can immediately plug into DH, and not only that, Because of his versatility in the infield, he can play third base. We could stick him at second base for a game or shuffle some other people around. If he's at shortstop, you put Arcia at second base and you let Albies DH for a day. You let Riley DH for a day. You let Olsen DH for a day. By bringing Royce Lewis in and not picking up the contract option for Marcell Ozuna, now we have a ton of versatility in that DH position, and we can shuffle those infielders around. They can still get their ABs in, but they can take a couple days off in the field. It just provides so much flexibility, which is something obviously the Braves treasure massively, right? But they are so locked in to one situation with their DH currently. And Royce Lewis has the bat to be a DH. So by bringing him in, again, you're talking about DH flexibility for the next 4 years that we have team control over him. That's just massive upside. And one of the bigger reasons I think the Braves take a look at trading for him this year, not just to fill the shortstop position, but to fill this DH slash shortstop slash infield utility role going forward. Because let's say he's not the long-term solution at shortstop, but he holds it down this year and next year, and then he transitions into that DH role. But again, he could be the full-time DH and be fine, but he gives that infield versatility to rotate guys around, and that's such a massive asset. And being under team control for that many years, I mean, that would be huge for the Braves and really solidify one of their biggest question marks going forward. Both shortstop and DH could potentially fill both, but like I said, just gives a ton of options there. And that really is the biggest reason that I think he's the guy that the Braves go after. Now, who do the Braves give away? It's going to be tough, but I think Bryce Elder goes in that deal. Okay, but just Bryce Elder is not going to get it done. I do think the Braves would have to include another prospect in that. But when you look at how much pitching depth the Braves have acquired over the last couple seasons and built up, we have so many guys in AAA currently that Hurston Waldrop, who some argue is our number one prospect in our system, may have to start the season at AA just because there's so many pitchers at AAA. And so you can definitely do Bryce Elder and then maybe one of those other guys or potentially a younger guy that you throw in. So definitely Bryce Elder. I mean, he's big league ready. He would start on a majority of the other major league teams, and the Twins could plug him right into their rotation. But again, I think it would take more than just Bryce Elder to get him. Potentially like a Drew Hackenberg, a Darius Vines, maybe Dylan Dodd. I don't know that his stock is high enough. So some combination of Bryce Elder and another prospect from the Atlanta Braves, I think they put that together and they could get Royce Lewis from the Twins. So that's my prediction for what the Braves are going to do at shortstop this year. Let me know in the comments down below whether you agree, disagree, which of the options you like, or if you have something completely different that you think the Braves are going to, or if you have a different route that you think the Braves are going to take. I want to know. Let's chat about it. I appreciate you watching this and tuning in. And as always, go Braves.